Part 1. The loudest person in the room. Imagine a room filled with tension. Two people are arguing. One is red-faced, veins popping, screaming at the top of their lungs. The other is sitting perfectly still, leaning back, watching the display of anger with a slight, curious tilt of the head. Pause. Who is winning? To the untrained eye, the loud person seems dominant. But to a psychologist, the loud person has already surrendered. They have lost control of their emotions, their logic, and most importantly, the room. Welcome to the science of strategic calmness. Today, we aren't just talking about keeping your cool. We are going deep into the biological and psychological triggers that allow a silent person to dismantle a shouting opponent. We will explore the methods used by hostage negotiators, high-level litigators, and masters of human behavior to win arguments without ever raising their voice. Part 2. Biology of the hijack. To understand why calmness works, we must understand why anger fails. Inside the human brain, there is a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This is your biological alarm system. When someone attacks you, verbally or physically, the amygdala triggers a massive release of adrenaline and cortisol. Pause. This is what psychologists call the amygdala hijack. In this state, the blood flow is diverted away from the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex logic and social awareness, and sent to the muscles. Essentially, an angry person is operating with a reduced IQ. They cannot think strategically. They can only react. When you remain calm while someone else is screaming, you are maintaining your full cognitive capacity while they are essentially experiencing a temporary brain malfunction. You are a grandmaster playing chess against someone who is trying to eat the pieces. This biological gap is where your power resides. Part 3. The FBI's secret weapon, mirroring. In the 1990s, the FBI's lead hostage negotiator, Chris Voss, realized that logic doesn't work in high-tension situations. You cannot argue a kidnapper into surrendering with facts. You have to use tactical empathy. One of the most effective tools for this is mirroring. It sounds too simple to work, but it is devastatingly effective. Mirroring is the act of repeating the last 3 words of what someone just said, but as a question. Pause. If your opponent screams, "You're being completely unreasonable and you're making my life impossible," you don't defend yourself. You simply say, "Making your life impossible." This forces the angry person to elaborate. It pulls them out of their emotional loop and forces them to engage the logical part of their brain to explain what they meant. As they explain, they begin to calm down. You have effectively hijacked their hijack. You aren't fighting them. You are leading them into a deeper conversation where you hold all the cards. Part 4. The vacuum of silence. Most people are terrified of silence. In a social setting, a 3-second silence feels like an eternity. In an argument, silence is a vacuum, and the human brain is wired to fill it. Pause. This is the 4-second rule. When an opponent finishes an aggressive point, wait. Do not react. Count to 4 in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. During these 4 seconds, something fascinating happens. The aggressor starts to feel a deep sense of social anxiety. They start to wonder, why aren't they responding? Did I say something stupid? Are they unimpressed? Usually, to break the tension, the aggressor will start talking again. And when people talk to fill an awkward silence, they almost always say something they regret, or they reveal their true motivation. Silence isn't the absence of communication. It is a tool that forces the other person to expose their own weaknesses. Part 5. Emotional labeling. Instead of telling someone, "I understand," which often sounds patronizing, psychologists use a technique called labeling. Labeling is the process of putting a name to the emotion the other person is feeling. Pause. But there is a trick. You must use neutral, non-committal language. Instead of saying, "You are angry," you say, "It seems like you're feeling frustrated," or "It looks like you feel like your ideas aren't being heard." When you label an emotion, you are performing a psychological bypass. You are acknowledging the emotion without agreeing with the logic behind it. Once an emotion is labeled, the brain recognizes it as processed, and the intensity of that emotion begins to drop. It is like taking the lid off a boiling pot of water. Part 6. The Gray Rock Method. If you are dealing with a narcissist or someone who thrives on drama, the ultimate defensive strategy is the Gray Rock Method. The goal is to become as boring as a gray rock. When they provoke you, you give one-word answers. "Okay. Interesting? I see." You offer no emotional reaction, no anger, no sadness, no defense. People who argue for the sake of power need your reaction to feel significant. When you deny them that reaction, they lose their fuel. They will eventually move on to a target that gives them the high they crave. By being calm, you become a low-value target for their toxicity. Part 7. The Stoic Perspective. 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosophers understood that we do not have control over what people say to us, but we have total control over how we process it. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." When someone insults you, they are essentially throwing a ball at you. If you catch it, you are now part of the game. If you let it drop and simply watch it roll away, the game cannot begin. Calmness is the refusal to catch the ball. In modern psychology, this is called cognitive reframing. You don't see the argument as a personal attack. You see it as a data point. You observe the person's anger as if you were a scientist watching a storm. This detachment gives you an aura of unshakable status. People naturally defer to the person who is the most stable. In any group dynamic, the person who remains the most composed will eventually be looked to as the leader. Part 8. Knowing when to fold. The final lesson in the power of calmness is knowing that some arguments are simply beneath you. There is a concept in economics called opportunity cost. Every minute you spend arguing with someone who isn't interested in the truth is a minute you've lost forever. Winning an argument with a fool is like trying to convince a wall to move. You only end up exhausted, and the wall remains a wall. True mastery is realizing that your peace is worth more than being right. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. You smile, you nod, and you walk away. This isn't a retreat. It's a victory. You've kept your energy, your time, and your dignity. Conclusion: the ascent of the calm. As you go through your week, try this. The next time someone provokes you, don't prepare a rebuttal. Instead, observe your own heart rate. Breathe. Use the 4-second pause. Watch as the other person unravels while you remain perfectly still. You will find that the world looks very different when you are the anchor in the storm. People will respect you more, fear you a little, and listen to you intently when you finally decide to speak. Because when a calm person speaks, the world listens. Stay focused, stay observant, master your mind, and you will master your world.